Hey guys, what's going on? Doggy here. Just really quickly before we get into the video, I wanted to say if you guys enjoy this video, then don't forget to leave me a like. It's going to really help me out a lot. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, then don't forget to subscribe. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Right, okay, first up, runes and masteries. On screen right now, you should see the runes and masteries that I use, and it's really important to take as much attack speed as possible and ability power to start off with Diana in the early game because you want to take full advantage of her passive. So that's why I'm using attack speed reds, armor yellows, flat ability blues and quints, and for masteries, I'm going 12, 18, 0, and my keystone is in Thunderlord's Degree. This is going to help a ton with burst, and you're guaranteed to make full use of it every time you go in for an engage. Furthermore, I've got points in Feast and Vampirism. These two masteries make clearing the jungle really easy and enable you to have around 650 gold for your first back, especially if you're starting blue side, more on that later. And this means that you can buy Stalker's Blade on your first back. I've also set myself up with a custom item page, which you'll be able to see now, so that I can find the items that I'm likely to buy, and I don't have to spend loads of time faffing around in the shop and wasting time looking for items. Okay, so now that's all covered, I just want to quickly go over why you should be picking Diana in an average game. So the reasons to consider Diana for maximum win rate are your team comp is full AD, and you already have a tank top laner and maybe a tank support, so now you really need an AP assassin jungle. This is probably going to be the standard use case scenario. If your team already has lots of AP, I wouldn't recommend picking up Diana because your enemies will likely just build as of magic resist and you won't be able to do diddly squat. So in this case, I would probably instead recommend taking someone on the likes of Vi, because she's got tons of CC and can be played like really well as an off-tank damage dealer in the jungle. If you want to learn more about Vi, then I'm going to make a video soon on that anyways, so just stay subscribed, I guess. One last thing about playing Diana, she doesn't really do too well if you're playing her into a tanky team comp, because her burst isn't really enough to take out the front line without getting blown up. So if you do find yourself playing against a team like full of tanks, best thing to do is to wait for your team to engage and then dive the back line when it's more safe. Right, now I can go through a standard start on Diana. So first up, you want to buy Hunter's Taslim, Refillable Potion, and a Warding Totem. And if you're fast enough with like all your item buys, which you should be because like it's not really that hard, you can just run straight out of your base and go to the river. If you're playing on blue side, then you want to stick a Trinket Ward into their Tribush. And if you're playing red side, then you should probably try ward over the wall onto their Gromp. But if it's not really safe to do that, maybe they have like a Thresh or a Blitzcrank, then just try put a ward in the river and you'll be fine. And that goes for blue side or red side. Okay, so furthermore, you should ask your top laner to ward the river to protect your other buff. So if you're blue side, you want them to protect your red buff, and if you're red side, you want them to protect your blue buff. This is just going to help so that if the jungler comes in for like an invade or something, you'll see them on the screen, and then you can like work around that and maybe invade their buff. So one thing to take in mind when you're playing Diana is to put 2 points into your W early on so that you take less damage from the jungle and you have like more health, so when you can gank you'll basically just not die. So your skill order should look like this, which is going to be on screen anyways, so you can like check that out. And one last thing, if you want to check out my Mobfire build guide on Diana, then the link for that is in the description, so yeah, feel free. Okay, so the path that you just saw me take is going to be the most standard path for the jungle when on the blue side. The things that I did that you should also be doing, you want to make sure that you smite Gromp the second it spawns for the Gromp smite bonus, and then you also want to smite your red buff for the health back. If you get a good enough leash from bot lane, then you can use your smite on the Raptor camp, but I wouldn't really recommend doing this until you're more confident with how much health you're going to be taking from it, and specifically how much health you're going to be taking, like health damage you're going to be taking from red and Krugs. Doing the wolf camp is just flat out not worth it in my opinion. It's much better to skip it and just go straight to Raptors after blue. Also, if you leave wolf camp up after you've backed and bought your tracker's knife, you can just run straight to wolves, take it, get your level 4 and put a point in your E for ganks. If you're going to start red side, then you want to make sure that you start on Krugs so that you can get the best leash possible from your bot lane. You also want to make sure that you smite the Krugs so that you get the Krug smite bonus, which basically means I think every 5th attack it stuns the camp that you're on and it just means you're going to be taking less damage in the jungle. After you've done your Krogs, you want to go straight to red and just take that and then go to Raptors. If you want, you can smite the Raptors because your smite will actually come up just before the Raptors die. But this is only going to be useful if you know that you're going to be using the Raptor smite buff for a gank on mid. If you're not planning to do this, however, because mid is, for instance, not pushed into the turret, then the best thing to do is just kill Raptors as normal and run straight to blue. When you get to blue, you don't want to smite it because there's literally no point. You're going to be backing after your Grump anyway. So you can just take blue. The only reason to smite it would be if the enemy jungler is like nearby and is going to contest it. So after doing your blue, you just want to take your Grump. Make sure you smite it. Recall, you'll have 650 gold. You can buy a Tracker's Knife and then you can go straight to your Wolf Camp, get level 4 and try to gank. Okay, so now you know how to manage your first clear on Diana. The only other thing that I would say at this point is that because you have an AoE on your passive, you always want to focus the big creep in any camp. So for instance, if you're taking Raptors, then you want to focus the big one because your passive, alongside your Q and W, will kill the small ones anyway before you actually manage to kill the big one. So there's literally no point attacking the small ones first off. And doing this on Diana is like critical and will increase your clear speed so much and the amount of health that you have left after each camp. So I touched on this a little bit before, but I'll go back to it anyway. After your first back, you'll be almost level 4 and you'll have enough gold for a Tracker's Knife, so you definitely want to buy that. Then you'll have 2 camps available to you to like go back and take, depending on which side of the jungle that you started on. If you started red side, then the 2 camps should be Wolf and Krugs, and if you started blue side, then the camps will be Wolf and Grump. After taking one of these camps, you'll be level 4 and you'll have an opportunity to gank because you can put a point in your E. However, if you can't gank for whatever reason, so for instance, if all the lanes are pushed, then the best thing to do is probably go into the enemy jungle and try to spot their jungler. This will be great for your lanes because they'll know that they're not going to be ganked anytime soon, so it takes the pressure off of them. And also, if you can spot the enemy jungler, and you know he's like low health or whatever, because he's still taking one of his camps, then you can probably kill him because you'll have a lot more strength to fight him in the jungle at this point. You've already got your Tracker's Knife, you're already level 4, you've got a point in all your abilities, so that's probably the best thing to do. However, if you can't spot him, then you can either wait in one of the brushes and just wait for him to come by, or if you find that you think it's a waste of time, you can just take one of the camps that's like open to you. If for instance one of the buffs is still up, then that's probably the best thing to prioritize. One thing to watch out for though is their mid laner specifically, because if for instance they have a ward in the enemy in their jungle, or you get spotted by the wolf spirit, then their mid laner is likely going to be coming to kill you because their jungler will be like pinging you like crazy for their mid laner to come over and try to kill you. So basically just keep an eye on the map and make sure that they don't start like walking over to kill you, and if they do, then get out there as fast as possible and try to save your soul. Okay, so with your soul intact, you'll probably be wondering how to initiate a gank as Diana after level 6. Level 6 is a really big power spike for Diana because it gives her access to a really powerful gap closer or escape. On its own, it doesn't really deal that much damage, but this is reflected in its ridiculously low cooldown. So when you're going in for a gank, you first want to use your Q to apply your Q's Moonlight passive. This means that you can use your ult Lunar Rush without it going on cooldown. If you manage to apply Moonlight to more than one champion with your Q, then when you use your ult, it will actually damage all of the champions or minions that the Moonlight has been applied to. However, you're only going to dash to the one that you specifically target. And this is really cool because it can net you some extra damage or even double or triple. Another cool thing to note is that you can use your ult while your Q is still flying in the air, as long as your Q lands on the enemy champion after you've ulted, then it'll be fine and it will immediately reset. So furthermore, whilst you're in midair and dashing towards your target, it's good practice to use your W, like whilst you're still traveling towards them, so that the second you get there, um, and you either auto attack or one of your W little balls hits on the enemy champion, your Thunderlord's Decree is actually going to proc, which is going to help a lot with your traits. So when the enemy starts to run away or flashes away, you can either wait until they get just on the edge of your E range and then use your E to pull them back in and slow them down, or if they actually flash away, you've got a couple of choices. You can flash after them and then E, or there's not really a lot of point doing that because your ult is already off cooldown because you managed to hit your, well, hopefully you managed to hit your Moonlight passive. So you can just ult them again, which will give you a little bit of extra damage. Use your E, get them back in range and start auto attacking them. Your passive will probably proc either 1 or 2 times, and you should definitely have a kill by the end of the trade. You shouldn't be scared to steal kills from your team because you're playing Diana and she's obviously really high damage. So it's quite useful to be fed on her, and the only time you really need to donate kills to your team is if you're ganking for your AD or AP carry and you absolutely know 100% that they can secure the kill. If you don't know that, then take the kill yourself. Okay, so now you've got a good understanding on how to play Diana and what abilities to use and when. I just wanted to show you an example of a final build which is more orientated around carrying your teammates. And in this build, the Lichbane or the Zhonya's Hourglass is probably the most situational items, but everything else you'd really want to get. The other items that you could buy instead of the Lichbane or Hourglass would be a Void Staff if they've got loads of MR, or Medjai's if you get really fed early on. I mean, aside from that, I just want to wish you all really good luck playing Diana in League of Legends. And if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to subscribe and leave a like. It helps me out a lot. And I really appreciate you staying and watching to the end of the video. Peace.